Have you ever done someone wrong and you have had a hard time not just forgiving them, but forgiving yourself for doing what you did to them? And maybe at some point you think that they'll turn on you at some point. Yeah, we're going to talk about the topic of forgiveness. And forgiveness is just so important for us being free. We'll talk about it here in the pod. Hey everyone, welcome to Shifts and Ladders. I'm just delighted for you to be on with me today. We're going to talk about this topic of forgiveness. And many people, including myself, sometimes we struggle with it because forgiveness is such a delicate topic because at some point, the prerequisite for forgiveness is somebody doing something wrong to us.
Cause you was such a
And no one wants that to happen. No one wants to be hurt. No one wants to experience pain. But, you keep living long enough, as the seasoned folks say, you're going to get hurt. And people do it to us, some of us more often than we'd like to. But I think it's something that we need to talk about. We're going to go to the book, the Bible. We talked about principles and creativity over the last couple of weeks, but this is actually a principle of forgiveness that works. It works in the Bible. Again, there's earthly principles, but there are spiritual principles, one of them being forgiveness. And forgiveness, and this was said by Nelson Mandela, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It eats you up from the inside because you have not found a place to properly deposit the poison. So you are trying to inflict pain on them by not forgiving them. And in fact, you're damaging and making yourself even more bitter. And as much as people don't want to say it, you slowly become bitter because you don't have an outlet for all the pain and the hurt. You just stuff it inside. So we're going to go to a book in Genesis. It's the front of the Bible, the first book of the Bible. Joseph's brothers thought that. And why is it? It's because they did not forgive themselves. They didn't forgive themselves for all the things that they put Joseph through. They only know the part of them coming and seeing him as second in command of Egypt. They didn't see him getting tossed around to and fro, getting sold, doing work, getting lied on, doing more work. Now, God was blessing Joseph in the whole matter. But if I'm on the outside and my issues actually caused you a lot of harm, oh man, I would still feel kind of bad over time. So let me read this, and then I'm going to get to a couple points, and then we'll close it here. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "Perhaps Joseph will hate us, and they may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him." So they sent messengers to Joseph, saying, "Before your father died, he commanded us, saying, 'Thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespass of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now, please forgive the trespass of your servants, of your God, of your father.' And Joseph wept as they spoke to him. Then his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, 'Behold, we are your servants.' Then Joseph said to them, 'Do not be afraid, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. Now, therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones.' And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them." And then it talks about Joseph's death at that point. So Why is this particular place left right at the end of Genesis? And I had to really think about this because I feel like most people forget this when it comes to relationships. And relationships, to have a healthy one, requires forgiveness. And you will find yourself in a barrier between you and that person because you have not forgiven yourself. Now, this is what we as people do. We send things out before us to buffer us from the actual pain that they're going to experience. So I'm going to just talk about two things in this scripture that really bother us as individuals when it comes to relationships. The first point is that we think we think incorrectly about the wrongs that we've done. Okay. So most of the time what we do is we bury, or sorry, we, let me say this again. Sometimes we resurrect dead things and actually should keep them buried. This was actually a done deal. They had been in the land of Egypt with Joseph for years at this point. Okay. So there was no evidence. In fact, all of that stuff was in the past. So if you decide to resurrect the past, you are now taking the time to provide meaning to something that no longer has any power over you. Okay. Taking the time to interpret or reinterpret the past is a waste of your time. It's a waste of opportunity. It is a waste of your life, because now you have to go back and remember what was done in order for you to protect yourself. Most of the time, we can't remember what happened 3-4 days ago, let alone at this point, 14 plus years. Like, what are we talking about here? It is something that kills relationships, is dealing with the past and bringing up the past to remind people of who they were. That doesn't help anyone. I don't want to get reminded of a past version of me. Yes, that past version may have hurt someone. It may have broken relationships. It may have done something horrible. But reminding me of that person does nothing for my future. It actually keeps me anchored to something, right? So that's the first thing. The brothers weren't looking at the past correctly. Yeah, it happened. Leave it in the past. Leave it in the past. But they were reminded when their father died that they were covered. They were going to get found out again. But no one wants a buffer between you and your relationships. The perfect example is that this happened. The brothers sent messengers, and the Bible has it italicized, meaning it's leaning to the left or right. They basically sent someone to communicate. Hey, your dad said, they just made it up. They made it up. Hey, your father said before he died to forgive the trespasses of your brothers. They made that, and then the messengers sent that. They sent a message before they showed up, and then they showed up and said, we are your servants. What kind, and it says that Joseph wept. He wept. Now, why would Joseph have wept? This is it. And this is what happens when we don't forgive well. When we don't forgive well, we send buffers ahead. Joseph wanted to just talk to his brothers to shake out what happened. That's all. They went through all these theatrics to get the messengers queued up to say the right thing. And then they came in and bowed down to their brother. Listen, they were like, Joseph was like, these are my brothers. Why can't they talk to me? And honestly, why can't they forgive themselves? And that's what he says here. He said, what you guys meant for evil, God intended for good. It worked out in the first place anyway. Why are you worried about the past? Forgive yourself. I'm already past. I'm actually in a better place now had y'all not done that. And I still love y'all, and I'm going to still take care of y'all. That's what he said in this scripture. The thing that keeps us held up is ourselves. Because we can't forgive ourselves for whatever we have done, we have kept ourselves back. Simply because we feel bad about what we have done. Everyone has history. But the thing is, history is in the past. It is up to the present moment to provide meaning to the past. You in your past couldn't make meaning of it. It happened. It was an event. But when you're in your present moment, you provide meaning to that past. And it can change depending on what you receive in your present. So a death caused them to reevaluate what actually happened. We don't hear about any issues prior to this. And now they had to remember, oh, shoot, we did mess with Joseph. He's probably going to get us back. No. It wasn't even like that. So what I'm encouraging you to do when it comes to your relationships, and if you've done wrong to anyone, forgive yourself first, please. Forgive me, forgive you. Say to yourself, I forgive me for doing some dumb stuff. Because honestly, 9 times out of 10, if they're still talking to you and you're still in their presence, they've forgiven you. It's time to forgive yourself. They're not holding on to it, but you are. It's time to make that shift. I think Joseph was crying, not just because he didn't feel like his brothers couldn't talk to him. I really believe that he was crying because they weren't shifting yet. They literally had everything at their hands. Beautiful land of Goshen, jobs, money, food. He said, y'all still stuck on that? No. We can't have that. That concludes today's podcast. Listen, if you didn't know, we are on YouTube. Search for Shifts and Ladders. Subscribe to that channel. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share those with your friends too. I think podcasts are also on YouTube. So share YouTube and share with your friends. If you know someone who is struggling with relationship forgiveness, and actually take that back. If they're struggling with forgiving themselves, the Bible's really good at this. We get this very often. So subscribe, share, give me a like, and we'll catch you in the next podcast.